are halfway through the year. It's summer. I'm really hot because the UK sun is just burning every single part of my bald head. I'm wearing a potato sack for some reason. But what I realised we could do is I'm Mr. Ups and Downs. I have the finger of power. We can go through the last 6 months on WWE and we can give the good bits an up and we can give the bad bits a down. And only then has it been officially decided whether those things were good or whether those things were bad. I feel like I've introduced that very well. Let's do it. It's Ups and Downs for 2020 so far. We will start with what in many ways was a minor shock given everything that was going on at the time with the global pandemic. I know we're all bored of it, we've got to stay safe, we've got to do what's right, but how in the hell was WWE able to pull off WrestleMania 36? Penciled in for when it all was kicking off really badly, WWE had to move all of this from Raymond James Stadium to the Performance Center, and they put it over 2 nights, and yet somehow it was really entertaining, it was really jolly, and it filled me with absolute glee. Is getting it up. With the power of hindsight now, we can see that a lot of the matches on this card were a bit inconsequential, like when you see Mojo Rawley turn up on TV and just know that he's not going to be there in a week's time, but there were still some pretty good standouts like Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte Flair, and the fact that we had the coronation of Drew McIntyre, who has gone on to be a flipping good WWE champion. He's one of the best. You also had the madness of the Firefly Funhouse, which people are still talking about now, and just imagine that turns out to be John Cena's last thing. It's not even a match, but a thing. That will blow your minds. And there was also something else that we definitely need to dog around. Because that wasn't the only cinematic experience at WrestleMania, and after going back and forth about what I was going to give this to, I just had to go with the Boneyard match, because since April, we have learned so much more about The Undertaker, and that this Boneyard match could be his last match ever. It was good anyway, but do you know how much extra gravitas that gives it? It's like times 100, and that's why it doesn't just get an up. That's right, in terms of the first 6 months, it gets the damn golden up. I mean, I lost my mind over this a few months ago because I just couldn't believe how well WWE had produced it. And yeah, like I say, now, if I ever do go back and see it again, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's the last time I'm gonna see Mark Calloway on my screen. And damn it, I'm an old man, I'm an old school fan. That means a lot to me. And I know many of us, me included, wanted to see AJ Styles versus the Dead Man in a proper wrestling ring, but sometimes you just gotta handle the cards you're dealt. WWE did that brilliantly. We shouldn't praise them for everything, but we should praise them for this. Kayfabe-wise, it also killed off Gallows and Anderson, because I don't know about you, I haven't seen them since, so I have a mixed bag about that, but in terms of a piece of cinema or a piece of action, it kicked ass. And if we go all the way back to January, and let's not forget then, we didn't know about any of this madness, and imagine somebody from the future had come up to you and told you what was about to happen, you would have been terrified, but we did get the Royal Rumble, and not only was the Royal Rumble one of the best we've seen in ages, but it also had the surprise return of Edge. Are you kidding me? Up. Along the same lines of Daniel Bryan's comeback, because it simply was never meant to happen, as soon as we all heard the lyrics, "You think you know me," and then you saw Edge come out and pretty much have an emotional breakdown as he walked down the aisle, well, we all started to have emotional breakdowns too. How had this happened? Was Edge really okay? Or was this some kind of blackmail expedition that was about to go very badly? Thankfully it wasn't, but I had my suspicions. WWE strived to rob us of this moment when they decided not to show the first bit of action from Edge since 2011, and they cut to somebody in the crowd instead. But I'm not going to worry about that because moments like this are just so much bigger. It was a massive reminder about why we all watch wrestling, and don't forget, throughout all of this, Drew McIntyre was also having the time of his life as well, and you know that because when someone like the rated R superstar does make a return in the Royal Rumble, we all decide, well, he better win, otherwise I'm going to kick off on the internet. But because we were so behind Drew, because he had such a good performance, the fact that he won was okay. It was like a double-edged sword, but you turned out the blaze was lovely pillows that made you feel good. Edge was back, Drew McIntyre was the #1 contender, the Royal Rumble 2020 was great. Then look, let's carry on the positivity because we have mentioned Edge's name, and when you mention Edge's name and you mention 2020, you have to be very understanding and very happy that we got the greatest wrestling match ever, and while it wasn't, it was still pretty damn good. So it was a pretty damn good wrestling match ever. That's not grammar up. Causing a little bit of friction because it was pre-taped and therefore had some camera angles that certain people didn't like. And how silly does that say when you say out loud, Edge and Randy Orton put all their experience, all their storytelling, everything they have, and they gave it all to us, and it probably gave us the best WWE match of the year. They even made The Undertaker cry. That came out, Mark Calloway texted Edge and basically said, This is everything I love about wrestling, and now I'm bawling. I'm going to come back to the ring. They're like, no, take it, don't do it. It also tapped into who these characters were, and it lit a fire under Randy Orton's ass to such a degree, he is now probably having one of the best runs he's had in ages, and I can't wait to see what else the year has in store for the Viper. I mean, he's back to being the legend killer. Who saw that one coming? We will, without a shadow of a doubt, have a third in this trilogy soon, and they have now set the bar so high, it's going to be difficult to top it, but I still believe they will. As we know though, it hasn't been all peaches and cream for WWE over the last 6 months or so, especially when we start talking about what is now dubbed as the worst Wednesday ever. And I am of course referencing when WWE let the world know that they were getting rid of 30 plus employees, and some of that was production staff and some of that was wrestlers, and it just sucked, and it sucked so much it gets a brown down. The real shame was that because the wrestling world was shut down at this point, none of these guys and girls had anywhere to go. I know they had 90-day non-compete clauses, but nobody could make any plans because nobody even knew what was going to happen tomorrow. AEW was operating, but they couldn't act as a safety net, and there wasn't even an indie scene to speak about. So if you wanted to get your sort of 5 minutes of fame because you were a WWE superstar, that was stolen away from you too. It's just so unfair. We just have to keep everything crossed that it works out for everybody, and it did give us Rusev streaming on Twitch, which I have enjoyed immensely, but I don't think that anybody enjoyed this, and if you were one of those fans that just decided to take a few days away from the business, well, I don't blame you. I mean, the silver lining of that is that not everybody got kicked out the door, but there were still individuals within WWE who for some reason had their push stolen away, and I am of course specifically talking about Ricochet. What the hell happened down? Ever since WWE decided to book him and have him murdered at Saudi Arabia when he did take on Brock Lesnar, they just don't seem to know what to do with the guy. Do you remember when they teased us some more? They put him with Cedric Alexander and they're like, oh, they're going to be a really good tag team, but then they vanished as well, unless you watch Main Event, but let's be honest, ain't nobody watching Main Event. I mean, they were having a feud with Vink and Thorne at one stage of all of this, and that all just stopped too. Why does WWE do this? I really don't understand why Vince McMahon doesn't see any worth in Ricochet, but I do want to point out that I told you this whole gimmick about superheroes being real wasn't going to help anybody. You never see Captain America just disappear from the Avengers without any explanation. That's probably not true. There's so many comics, I bet at one point he did, but that's a comic book. This is real life. I still believe, and this doesn't feel good. Back to the happiness though, because we had Becky Lynch. I mean, this was nothing that was planned, but it was still just a lovely reality moment that sometimes I get a little bit emotional about when I think about it. And of course, I'm not talking about any kind of match or a storyline or the fact that she was able to hold on to that Raw Women's Championship for over a year. I'm talking about the fact that on one Monday night, she came out, she got a microphone and said, hey guys, I'm going away from a while because I'm pregnant. It was just lovely and served as a good reminder that we as fans sometimes do get bogged down with the nitty-gritty, and that all we really need is a nice slice of happiness that actually ties into real life. Just a smile on the man's face was enough to make you feel all warm and fuzzy inside, and even if Becky Lynch never decides to turn to a wrestling ring, and I'm sure she will do, she's already left her mark, and I wish her nothing but the best. Some people on the internet didn't, but they are crazy. And if we stick with this moment, there was somebody who accompanied her in the ring who has gone on to be one of the MVPs of the closed no fans arena, and I am of course talking about Asuka. Give it up. Doing so well, she even won the approval of Vince McMahon, who knew that allowing Asuka to be Asuka is all we needed to do. Whether that was dancing into the shot or playing her entrance theme or just being an absolute badass in the ring and probably one of the best wrestlers on the planet, she has been good every single week, whether she was on Raw or whether she was on SmackDown, and it's probably why she was rewarded with the Raw Women's Championship. As I'm recording this too, it just got announced that she's going to be taking on Sasha Banks in a brand new feud, and I can't wait for that. And if we want to take the term sports entertainment and break it down here, she can be sports and she can be entertainment. We should push her to the moon. On the other hand, however, Jeff Hardy threw some piss into Sheamus's face. Down. As I always say, if Hardy is cool with this and he doesn't mind using his personal problems to fuel a storyline, then who am I to say otherwise? I'm just a bored asshole. But as a fan watching this, have I been entertained? No, I have not. Also, don't want to see urine being thrown at anybody's skull. Also, and I know I'm going to sound like Jeff Hardy's mum, imagine Hardy had some kind of relapse when all this was going on. It would just be too much to take. I don't want that to happen, but again, I'm a mother, a worry. It's also nuts that Sheamus just beat him at Backlash, because it basically underlined the fact that it's okay to be a bully. And I get it, the feud's going to continue and ultimately Jeff Hardy will come out on top, but it just tasted sour in my mouth, That's probably once again because I saw piss go into somebody's mouth. It's that kind of stuff that reminds people that don't watch wrestling why they don't want to watch wrestling. It always happens every time. A friend of mine who's like on the periphery of watching it finds out about this and I get a text going, is this real? I'm like, I'm sorry, just don't watch. I don't know what I'm talking about. It's not for me. Now, I don't like doing this either, but we do need to talk about my dad, Goldberg. Now, he's a lovely, lovely father. He treats me well. He's always looking out for me. But should he have beaten Bray Wyatt, the Fiend, at the Saudi Arabia Super Showdown show? No, he should not have done is getting her down. And if it did feel all over the place and like it wasn't meant to happen, it's because it was all over the place and wasn't meant to happen. The plan was always to bring Bill Goldberg in and have him lose to the Fiend, but then somebody had the bright idea, well, wait a minute, if we have Goldberg win, we can do Bill versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, like spear versus spear, and that will look great on the marquee. And they weren't wrong. It was a great way to get casual fans in, but is this what we got? No, it is not. The pandemic wrecked all of that, and it turned out to be Bill Goldberg versus Braun Strowman, and to this day, nobody knows why. They just showed a graphic on SmackDown saying, Braun Strowman's gonna be in it now, and in terms of kayfabe, no one has a clue where Roman Reigns went. Maybe he fell down a hole. The match they had at Mania 2 was just one too many spam your finishers, so that didn't work either, and I'm kind of hoping that Bray Wyatt, The Fiend, Bray whoever, will be the Universal Champion before the summer is out. Then we can just go back to the original plan and maybe just push all of this out of our brains. I tell you who has kicked ass so far though, Sasha Banks and Bayley. Up. Not only do I now prefer this version of Bayley, which is a huge compliment because I like the hugger persona too, but her slow falling out with best friend Sasha Banks is long-term storytelling at its best, and you never get long-term storytelling in WWE no more. There's tiny remarks, small glances, ride quips, sometimes they fall out in the middle of the ring, but they always manage to get back together. When they eventually do implode and have a match, it is going to be nicer than a pasta dish. I feel like both guys have taken advantage of everything that has happened over the last few months, and you know they're doing something right because they appear on Raw, they appear on SmackDown, and they appear on NXT, and do you ever hear the audience moaning that they're overexposed? No, you don't, because we're all happy to see them as much as we can. I mean, I never saw them becoming the women's tag team champions, but in hindsight, it was absolutely an inspired decision. Sasha Banks and Bayley, you right at the top. Where the hell did the following people go though? Shayna Baszler, Bianca Belair, we've already mentioned Ricochet, Cedric Alexander, Riddick Moss, Mojo Rawley, we've already talked about how he can't get on TV for more than 2 weeks. These people turned up and then maybe they fell down that Roman Reigns hole and now no one's talking about them and apparently nobody cares. And I know there is a flip side to this in the sense that we've seen Andrade, Austin Theory and Angel Garza get a little kick up the bum, but we shouldn't be going, well, thank goodness brand new stars are being built. That should be the norm, and we shouldn't be taking people like Bianca Belair and Shayna Baszler and just having them go away. Bianca Belair especially, she was the manager of the Street Profits for 30 seconds and then poof, gone. Plus, if we want to continue more on this theme, do you remember when Natalya had a phone call with her husband and had a row and that didn't go anywhere? This kind of stuff has to stop. Also, why is Natty turning into a cat? It's getting it down. There are others who have shone though, so we should shine a light on them. Otis, Sonya Deville, Mandy Rose, up. Their weaving storyline has been executed far more than other WWE narratives, and Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville's feud is genuinely something I'm invested in, and they understand their characters perfectly. Also, Otis won Money in the Bank. I know some people moaned about that as well, but you would have moaned no matter who it was. This was new, this was fresh, it was like bread, and I enjoy bread. It also feels like the powers that be actually have a plan for this trio, and that excites me massively. Even if for some reason Otis does lose that Money in the Bank briefcase, I think this has elevated his status, and that's what I want to see from guys coming from the ground up. Also, do you remember when Otis and Mandy Rose got together? It was a proper feel-good moment. I get it, it would have been better with fans, but sometimes you gotta take what you can get, and I cheered there from my sofa, probably woke up my neighbors, but it made me smile, and that's what I want from wrestling, to smile. What does not get a free pass is what happened in March. You remember this? I remember this. It's getting a kick in and it's getting it down. But after months of teasing what may be in Eric Rowan's cage, and that is not a euphemism, it turned out to be a fake mechanical spider, and it was a fake mechanical spider in reality, but also in the world of kayfabe, because when I was watching Raw, it was quite clear that this thing wasn't legit, and yet no one ever pretended it was meant to be a spider, so it was just a fake mechanical spider that somehow spent red mist into people's faces and freaked other people out. There's no two ways to put it. This was really, 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 really shit. I'd like to apologize to my parents for swearing. But there you go, there's some ups and downs for 2020. Obviously, we haven't gone through everything, but that's deliberate, so now you can get in the comments and remind me of everything I missed and whether it got an up or whether it got a down. Then like the video, share the video, subscribe to What Culture Wrestling. Head over to whatculture.com, read yourself some articles, follow What Culture on Twitter, What Culture WWE, and watch more videos here on What Culture Wrestling. My name is Simon, Man of the Man, wearing a potato sack. Thank you for always joining me for ups and downs, and we've got 6 months to go, and you bet your ass I'm ready.